Welcome back to Beyond Well. I'm Sheila Hamilton, and I'm joined today by Carol McGrone. She has begun her career as a mental health and substance abuse clinician, as well as a health educator in both the community and correctional settings. And she's continued her endeavors to offer mental health support during her retirement over the past 15 years, which I absolutely love. Carol, I can think of no better retirement than continuing to help people who are suffering from mental illness. So thank you for that.
And doing it without an administrative expectations, being able to do what you want to do and learn.
Right. She's also been a facilitator of a National Alliance on Mental Illness Family and Friends support group and a co-facilitator of a Hearing Voices support group with a Western Massachusetts Recovery Learning Community. She was recently invited to participate in monthly online meetings with family support group facilitators, which includes participants now during COVID-19 from all over the United States. And they're examining and defining the purposes of family groups and working on how to extend these family groups based on the values of the Hearing Voices Network. So Carol, thanks for joining us. And I am very, very interested in how you first got to know about the Hearing Voices approach and what appealed to you about it.
I would have to say that it was a series of serendipitous connections that brought me into the Hearing Voices experience. Because at about the same time as I was moving into retirement, a family member, whom I'm going to choose not to identify because I don't have permission from them to do that, so I will be referring to this person as my family member, they were entering the mainstream system of mental health care and were resisting the idea of having to take medication. So this inspired me to search for alternative methods that of support that for someone I deeply cared about. And on the recommendation of friends, I was guided to the grassroots national organization, which you've mentioned, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, also known as NAMI. It was within that organization I was lucky enough to have crossed paths with someone who suggested a psychiatric survivors group. That was an option I had not known existed. And those folks eventually led me to the other peer organization, which you have mentioned, that is the Western Mass Recovery Learning Community, also known as the RLC. So the RLC was beginning to offer trainings and experiences with several alternative approaches, including the Hearing Voices approach. And I decided to join a Hearing Voices group and began to learn more about different ways to understand mental health challenges.
So talk to me about some of those things that, first of all, surprised you and maybe even delighted you that you learned as an HV family group facilitator.
As I attended the Hearing Voices group, I was keeping in mind that I was there searching for supports for my loved one, but I actually stayed for myself because I was appreciating the authenticity of sharing that occurred in that group, as well as the support for me, because I was coping with a complex of emotions related to my loved one's experience. And so I valued my own personal growth within this environment and wanted to bring it to the family support that I had been facilitating. And when I had an opportunity to be trained as a Hearing Voices group facilitator, I was all in and have continued to enjoy the learning experiences that I've had there.
Carol, talk to me a little bit about how COVID-19 has changed the experience of these online groups, and what are you hearing from people?
COVID, actually, it really is making life a lot scarier for families and their loved ones, but it has presented more challenges than usual and has shifted what some of the challenges are. Some families are having a hard time helping their loved ones understand the risks related to COVID and how to protect themselves, and others see their loved ones becoming more anxious and having more difficulty managing or regulating their emotions, and somewhat retreating from what had been a more active and healthy set of activities. But also, families who have chosen to join our virtual meetings are quite grateful to be able to do so. Some who are in rural areas have not been able to attend, and this has given them the opportunity. So those are some of the changes that have been talked about as far as it relates to COVID.
Many people don't talk about the potential benefits and the things that can be a positive about this, but part of it, of expanding a network to places where people couldn't reach you before, is really quite astounding and wonderful news.
Yes, yes.
I want to know more about the challenge and opportunities that family facilitators are facing right now.
Okay. But first of all, I have to say this has been a breath of fresh air for me to become involved with this group, because I have felt a bit like a Lone Ranger with my family group, because I had few opportunities to share with and learn from others who work with families using the HVN values and guidelines. Those of us who are in this group are all aware that there are simply not enough groups, and there is not enough awareness of alternatives to the biomedical model. Families and individuals want more assistance than solely relying on psychiatric medication. So beyond sharing some of the mutual challenges we face in trying to conduct our groups, we are also enthusiastically working on enriching what we do by sharing with each other and expanding family support that is in alignment with HVN values. This group began meeting sometime in February of this year, and we've accomplished quite a bit in just a short period of time. We started sharing the belief that friends and families are an underused, important resource and a source of support and compassion for their loved ones who hear voices or have other extreme experiences. So beginning with that conviction, we've been examining and defining, as you mentioned, the purpose of support groups, including what's been helpful in supporting families and sharing resources that we use and distribute to our group members. And we've continued working towards expanding the fact that we can have more HVN-supported family groups across the United States. But some of the mutual challenges we have discussed with each other include trying to accomplish a balance of having family members speak to their personal experience versus a focus on trying to fix or cure their loved ones. So our goal here has been to guide families to see emotional distress in the context of relationships versus having it so predominantly focused on the identified patient in their lives. We've acknowledged with each other that it's been hard to avoid for some participants to be periodically falling back into the language of medical pathology or wondering what else they might do to help their relatives. Another difficulty we mutually face is how to accomplish a balance in the use of our time in our support group meeting. We recognize that one of the benefits, of course, of having participants talk about their challenges, it offers a soothing awareness that they're not alone. That's common for attending any group experience. But equally important in the context of an HVN group is to use our time to explore how they can meet those challenges. As facilitators, to offer some informational pieces and within the context of the group, and then allow to talk more about those things that can help them in their relationships with their loved ones.
That's beautiful, Carol. I want to hear your biggest piece of advice of encouragement or anything that you could offer to someone who has a family member who is really scared by hearing voices or having visions or auditory hallucinations or unusual beliefs.
Well, first of all, I would say, as I've just mentioned, focus on your relationship with your loved one rather than on wondering what you need to do to cure or heal them. We can get very wrapped up in that and forget that we are in a relationship. Something I often say to my family group is that our loved ones have their own journey in life and we have ours. And if our loved one were running a race, our job would be to cheer them from the sidelines because we could not run that race for them. And when we know better, we do better. And one of the best resources I've ever had for getting to know better is learning from those who have lived experience with this kind of race. This is what I see as one of the most important values of the Hearing Voices approach.
I just want to stop and say that is one of the most beautiful metaphors I've ever heard. Really, really touching.
Another thing that I would like to have support group members understand is that, as we have seen in our support group, some of our family members have recognized that in order to cope with the emotions and frustrations that they're feeling and trying to relate effectively with their loved ones, they've gotten some professional support for themselves. Or several have mentioned that an Al-Anon group can be very helpful. What is a struggle for many of us who are family members is coming to an acceptance of what we can do and what we cannot do to affect a change for or with our loved one.
Carol, it's been so wonderful to talk with you. And I know that your group is supported by the Foundation for Excellence in Mental Health Care. Is there any other way that people can find you or learn more about your work?
Well, there are two websites that I would offer as resources. One is hearingvoicesusa.org, and that is the Hearing Voices Network, which lists the resources that are available for learning about this Hearing Voices approach and for finding support groups. And I would also very definitely suggest that contacting the Western Mass RLC, and it's westernmassrlc.org. That's their website. And they offer a good deal of trainings and have been working specifically since the pandemic to offer trainings and support groups and webinars that help people to understand how to use this Hearing Voices approach. One more resource I would like to offer, and it's a book that's it was published about 10 years ago, but I think it's still very much relevant. It has been supported by Professor Gail Hornstein, whom was really instrumental in helping to bring the Hearing Voices approach to the United States. The title of the book is A Way Out of Madness, Dealing with Your Family After You've Been Diagnosed with a Psychiatric Disorder, written by Daniel Mackler and Matthew Morrissey. I offer it to my families because it offers to them a place where they can learn a little bit about how they're approaching their loved one and learn a bit about what might be some of the most supportive things for their loved one to learn for themselves in terms of dealing with, in terms of running their race, as I mentioned.
Well, let's hope for a good finish for all and a healthy one. Carol, thank you so much for spending some time with us today.